We want to welcome you to EVs Are for the People, our virtual event from Up Go Electric. We are so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. And I will hand it over to Melissa, who will talk about our safety moment.
All right, well, here at PSE, we always like to start off our meetings with safety moments. It's just a really good way to kind of get all on the same level. So this time we're going to be talking about our travel safety kits. So, you know, we're starting to get back out in the communities, maybe taking a hike or going and finding new places to explore. So it's just a good idea to make sure that you've got some appropriate safety gear in your car. Everything from your basic safety supplies like a first aid kit to some sunscreen and water for those hot days. It's even great to have some water for your dog or some extra dog food if you happen to be traveling with a pet. And then I always like to keep Benadryl in my car. It just makes for an easier moment. I have children who have some allergies, and to be able to treat any of those issues that might come up. And then, of course, making sure you've got lots of snacks. So fruit snacks, granola bars, goldfish are really popular in our house. So making sure you've got those extra supplies for your fun adventures outdoors.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. And who we are. So we'll introduce all the panelists here. My name's Megan Lochter, and I'm the Community Involvement and Events Program Manager. So I'll be moderating today's Q&A.
And my name is Melissa Troy. I'm an outreach manager that serves Pierce County and Kitsap County. And so I work with community organizations as well as just connecting our energy efficiency programs and electric vehicle programs to our community partners.
Hi, I'm Michael Harthorn. I'm our EV Marketing Program Manager here at PSE. That means I mostly talk to our customers about how great electric vehicles are, but I also help promote our EV charging network. If you don't know, PSE is opening chargers in public places for all EV drivers, but also at multifamily properties and workplaces around our service area.
And hi, I'm Jay Donaway. I come to you as president of the Seattle Electric Vehicle Association. I'm a long-term EV driver who also gets to indulge his hobby in business now, upgrading modern EVs and turning classics into electrified vehicles.
All right, well, thank you guys for all attending today. And you're going to be entered to win a car care kit plus some extra PSE goodies just for attending this event. That you're automatically applied, and so we're going to be notifying those winners today after the event to let you know if you got a really cool little gift prize from PSE. And then we're going to go ahead and play a little game. So we're going to click this wheel, give it a little spin, and let's see what kind of questions we might be able to answer in relationship to electric vehicles. Okay, so it looks like our first question is about the environment. True or false, electric vehicles aren't actually better for the environment because of electricity generation and battery manufacturing? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat and let's take a look. Hey Jay, what do you think the answer might be?
The answer is unquestionably, they are better.
Jay's an expert, he knows.
So well, it looks like from the chat, everyone is also in agreement that it is definitely false. All right, let's go ahead and spin again. Perfect. So this is about charging. True or false, you need special equipment to charge your electric vehicle at home. Go ahead and put your answer into the chat. Jay, this will be a super easy one for you.
Every EV should come with a smart extension cord, otherwise known as an EVSE, to plug into a 120-volt circuit at home. But for fastest possible charging, you would want to install a dedicated level 2 unit at home.
And this feeds into a question I just saw from Paul in the Q&A. Perfect timing, Paul. you don't need an L2 charger necessarily. We always recommend people, especially who are just driving around town, who have short commutes, give it a try with the charging cable that comes with the vehicle. It might be all you need. I have a couple coworkers who that's all they use, and it works great.
Ironically, now that we have cars with larger average battery sizes, level 1 charging is more feasible than ever only at home, because if you're driving less than 60 miles a day, you can do a 200-mile day and then make up the deficit gradually over the next few days.
I'm one of those people who only charges with the simple plug at home in my garage. Very easy. Great, so we'll see the answer.
Excellent. So we've got, of course, false, and there were lots of people in the chat that got that right as well. So let's go ahead and close that out. So lastly, we're going to do a poll. Are you thinking about an EV for your next car? There's going to be a pop-up poll box that pops up for you. So do you already drive an EV, or considering pre-owned or new? And then, do you kind of just want to see what's out there, or are you curious to learn more? If you've got something else, feel free to add it into the chat. I know that I'm considering both a pre-owned and a new EV because we've got our eyes on that new Ford Lightning truck. But I'm also interested in purchasing a pre-owned EV. So we're kind of two in that poll box in our household. Oh, we've got some people that are excited about the Hummer, or they're on their second Bolt lease, so they love the Chevy Bolt. Awesome. So go ahead and just click on the answer, and then we'll see what everyone has to say. Excellent. We're really excited for all of everyone who's here. And we've even got somebody who's just ordered the Mach 3. That's pretty cool. I know that everyone was really excited about that. So a lot of people on here are actually considering a new EV, but we do have some people that want to see what's out there. So we've got a good selection of kind of an average of all of the different answers. So really excited to be here today and be able to provide some education for you.
All right, I'll take it from there. Let's talk electric vehicles. That's why we're here. There are already over 75,000 electric vehicles in Washington. That's pretty good. We're one of the top states for EVs in the country. And why we're doing this, PSE wants to make it as easy as possible for customers to switch to an EV. It's part of the way we're working together with our customers to reduce carbon emissions and create a better energy future. Before we get to the exciting stuff, let's just talk about what an EV is for everyone who's completely new to them. There are two types of electric vehicle. Most people are familiar with battery-only electric vehicles, like a Tesla, where all it has is the electric motor. However, there also are plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Those are vehicles that have both an electric motor, but also a gas engine. So you typically use the electric motor for a few dozen miles of range, and then the gas engine takes over. We tend to talk about battery-only electric vehicles during this presentation. 3/4 of the EVs in Washington are battery-only, and you do get more benefits in terms of cost savings and environmental emissions reductions with the battery-only electric vehicles. So why go electric? One, you can save money. It's true that EVs are more expensive up front, but over ownership period, you're going to save money both because of incentives that are available as well as savings on gas and maintenance. We'll talk more about that in the next slide. EVs are better for the environment, especially true in Washington. In fact, right before we started the event, we were all talking about a new study that hit the news that shows that over the lifetime of an electric vehicle, even with battery manufacturing and the generation of electricity, EVs are still better for the environment in almost every single place you could possibly drive them. And finally, EVs are fun. No one wants to own a car that doesn't feel good to drive, and EVs with their modern technology and their zippier feel are a lot of fun. So savings. Like I said, over the ownership of an EV, you're going to save money. A Consumer Reports study recently found that you can save about $6,000 to $10,000 with an electric vehicle over long-term ownership. Even with the higher purchase prices. You can see in these two graphics here why exactly that is. Especially with fuel, you're going to be saving a good deal of money. Electricity is cheaper than gasoline by quite a bit. But maintenance also, you're just not going to need oil changes and a lot of other things you'll need with a gas-powered car. I'm going to let Jay here jump in a second and talk about the savings he's seen real quick. But I also do want to answer, I saw in the chat someone was asking about available incentives. And yes, there still are. You can save up to $7,500 on the federal incentive for almost every electric vehicle. The exceptions there are Chevy Bolt and the various Tesla models, though there has been work on trying to bring the incentives back for those two. In Washington, you can save a few $1,000s on a sales tax exemption for new electric vehicles and about $1,000 on a sales tax exemption for used electric vehicles. If you want more information on those, you can go to ev.pse.com. They're a little complicated to explain out loud, but they are out there and available. Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about how much money you could save in an electric vehicle and what kind of savings you've seen?
Thank you. Because being an energy management engineer, I had to run the numbers and justify my decision to the boss, my wife, and versus a new Prius, which would have been the alternative when we first bought our first modern electric vehicle in 2011, I was projecting to save $14,000 over a 10-year, 100,000-mile service life. In reality, it was over $18,000. Very significant savings. My lifetime fuel cost has been 2.54 cents per mile, which is only 90% cheaper than your average gasser before you throw in oil and maintenance. The EVs have been largely maintenance free. I did have to do an oil change in my gearbox at 100,000 miles, less than 1 quart of transmission fluid. Otherwise, it's just cabin air filters and tires and windshield wiper blades, that sort of thing. If you have a higher power model, like a Tesla, you will probably chew through tires faster than historically, but you'll have a lot more fun doing it.
Thanks, Jay. So move to the next slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about charging. Beyond savings, that's probably the biggest question we get from customers who aren't familiar with electric vehicles. It's also the biggest difference between a gas-powered car and an electric vehicle is that you have to charge this one. You're not going to be stopping at the gas station ever again, which is nice. So we've mentioned it already, but each electric vehicle will come with a charging cord that's known as level 1 charging. You can just plug that into any standard outlet at your home. No special equipment necessary. It's easy. You can take the cable with you wherever you go. But it only adds about 2 to 5 miles of range per hour. If you charge overnight, you have a short commute, or you just use it for quick errands, that might be enough for you. Try it out for a couple weeks and see. If you want faster charging, you can install a level 2 charger in your home. That's the next step up. You're going to need an electrician to install that. It basically works like a dryer or an electric oven. You're going to need that 240 volt outlet. It can add about 25 miles of range per hour. And if you're looking for help with any of that process, PSE can recommend electricians that can come out to your home and give you a quote for installation and help you along with that. You'll also see level 2 chargers at workplaces and in public places. The final kind of charging is DC fast charging. You'll find these at public stations, like our first public charging station that opened in Lacey, and we have 2 more coming up in the next couple months. With these, depending on your vehicle model, you can get a full charge in an hour or less. These pumps are the ones that most look like gas pumps. You can see one in the picture there. You can typically pay at a public charging station with the app for whoever operates the charging station, or sometimes they'll have phone numbers or card readers where you can pay over the phone.
Unless you're someone who does not have convenient at-home charging and are almost completely reliant on DC fast chargers, it'll become a very small part of your charging use. But I was a very heavy user of DC fast charging, and that pushed my fuel cost over 2 cents a mile to the 2.54 cents rather than the 1.8 cents a mile it otherwise would have been.
Right. I should recommend, we always recommend charging at home. It's where most EV chargers or EV owners do their charging, and it's also going to be the most cost effective and convenient. There's really nothing that beats waking up in the morning and having a fully charged EV and knowing you're not going to have to stop for gas during the day.
And you usually don't stop for that maximum an hour it might take to fully replenish your battery. You stop for whatever you need. And my average DC fast charging session cost is about $2.24 with a duration of 12 to 18 minutes.
All right, let's move on to the next slide. For those people who are saying they're waiting to see what's out there or what kind of models are coming up, good news is your EV choices are growing. There's already 24 EV models to choose from in Washington. More are on their way, including electric trucks. You can see the Ford F-150 Lightning there in the first picture. A lot of people are excited about that. Some of these other ones are already out. The Volkswagen ID4 has been popular, especially among PSE employees. A few of us have purchased those. Not myself, but I'm jealous of those who have. And really, just there's a lot more on the way. Your options are going to improve. You're going to have trucks. You're going to have smaller cars. You're going to have more crossovers, popular model. And the exciting thing, if you're worried about range, is the average range for a new EV model is about 250 miles, a little over. So ranges are going up as this technology improves and becomes more common. If you'd like to browse and compare current models, find out more about ranges, what's in your price range, compare environmental benefits between EV models and EV and gas-powered models, you can check out our electric vehicle guide at ev.pse.com. It's new and it's a lot of fun to play around with. All right, finally, we're going to talk about pre-owned EVs. It's a more affordable option for anyone who's looking to go electric. As with pre-owned gas-powered cars, you're going to want to be careful. You're going to want to do some research, and there's some things to be aware of. But overall, EV batteries are surprisingly healthy when they hit the pre-owned market. That's especially true with some brands. Studies have recently shown that things like Tesla and forgetting the other one off the top of my head specifically, one moment. Chevy and BMW also, their batteries have shown to have 80 to 90% life still when they hit the pre-owned market, which is nice because you will, with pre-owned EVs, have to think about possibly replacing the battery, which can be expensive depending on the model. But I'm sure Jay will mention this. He's talked about it before, and you're going to want to know what you're buying a car for. Jay calls it know your mission. So even if your battery is not 100% when you buy a used car, if you're only going to use it for commutes or errands around the city, you're not going to need 100% battery life left. 75% can probably get you where you're going. Like I mentioned, there is a Washington State sales tax exemption, a little more detail there. You pay no sales tax on up to $16,000 of a pre-owned EV priced under $30,000. Basically what that means is you save about over $1,000, just about $1,000, a couple dollars more on sales tax. And we're sharing a link in the chat, I believe, but there are a couple tips out there for buying pre-owned cars, EVs. So one tip, ask to see the EV at 100% charged and check the maximum range display to get an idea of the battery health left. I'll mention that none of these are foolproof. You're going to want to make sure you're buying from a reputable buyer that they think trustworthy and do some research, but pretty much one of your best ways to make sure the EV you're buying is healthy is to check the range at 100% charged. If you can find out if the battery's already been replaced, that's a bonus. Means you likely won't have to do it. Find out if the battery is still under warranty. Warranties are pretty good on the batteries, and if that warranty can be transferred to a new owner. And finally, make sure that level 1 charging cord that came with the EV is included. Otherwise, you might have to pay a little bit of money to get your own. Jay, did you have anything you want to add here?
Yes, trust but verify. For most of the significant models, there is an app for your phone. And with a simple Bluetooth dongle, you can plug in and get better diagnostic information than the dealership even will provide you, better than the technicians can see. For instance, for the Nissan Leaf, there is Leaf Spy Pro. Here is a screenshot from the Leaf, and you see the voltage of every single cell in the battery pack, and you get a state of health score. The Leaf deserves some notoriety for having the fastest degrading battery out there. This was our worst example, a car that only had 35,000 miles on it, and its remaining state of health was 59%. I can talk further about why that happens, but letting a car sit and stew in the sun at 100% state of charge is the biggest contributing factor.
Megan, I've got a question for you that we've had a lot of people on the chat talk about what their insurance looked like. So when you switched over to using an EV, Did you notice that your insurance went up? Did you see any changes in that? We've got a lot of kind of back and forth communication going on over there.
Yeah, I found for me it was just adding any vehicle was gonna increase because our EV is our second vehicle. So just adding any second vehicle to our policy was a pretty big increase. I did something a bit unique because I now work from home and I don't drive very much, and my husband uses the EV to commute, and he has a very short commute, about 10 miles each way. And so what we did is we ended up switching to an insurance where we pay by the mile, and it was actually less than what we were paying for one vehicle on our other policy. So I didn't see any effect from having a pre-owned EV or EV at all. I think for us, it was just adding a second car to the policy.
Yeah, our first EV purchase was replacing a much older gas commuter, so our insurance did go up. But since then, it became apparent that the minivan and the pickup truck were no longer needed for regular use, and they went on storage policies. So we've been able to save significant money on insurance overall. And that's another reason I like pre-owned EVs. They're expensive to buy, but cheap to own. Part of that is the lower capital cost that figures into your insurance coverage. And I no longer carry comprehensive because I'm driving only older used EVs, and I'm doing 151 miles a day in them. So I can't do pay by the mile.
And I kept all the coverage from my previous policy. So I have the same coverage that I had before. It's just now we're driving our vehicles a lot less than we were before. So I might have to look at what Jay recommended.
All right, so we're going to do another poll question. If you're considering a pre-owned EV, what's the biggest selling point for you? Is it that it's more budget friendly? I know that lots of new EVs have a pretty high price point. Are you looking at those certified pre-owned programs that offer the extended warranty, getting a zippy EV with plenty of life left, better for the environment, or those savings that you might experience? I know for us, it's actually a little bit more about better for the environment. We currently have a used gas vehicle that we're looking to replace with a used EV just so we can save on those gas trips and we no longer have to visit convenience stores, which would be pretty awesome. But it's also just, generally better as we're starting to focus more on how we can benefit the environment, even just from our one household. So go ahead and answer that poll question. Let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I can share our reasoning. So we were looking for a second car for quite a while, and I wanted an EV, and a pre-owned was the easiest route for us to go. I didn't want to think about going to gas stations anymore, and I've driven a lot of our fleet vehicles at PSE, and we had a Leaf and also a Chevy Bolt in our fleet, and I always loved driving them. Like they felt fast and sleek on the road, and I just always wanted an EV. And so I just started searching online, and of course this was last November and during the pandemic, and so I looked at what what the safety precautions were for taking a test drive, and it was very safe at our dealer. Everybody was masked up, and we got to drive a car on our own, and it was the first time my husband had ever driven an EV, and he couldn't believe you couldn't hear anything. He didn't know, like, is the car even on? It was pretty funny. But yeah, we both were pretty sold right away. We got a 2015 Nissan Leaf, and my daughter here at the bottom, she's celebrating our first car wash, everything kind of felt like exciting first in our new car. So just thought I would share that. And we have our EV is parked outside of our garage, and we have the charger plugged inside the garage, and the cord just kind of goes underneath the garage door. And it's just really been a fun addition to our family.
Awesome, thank you. So let's go ahead and take a look at those poll answers. And it looks like a lot of people are really interested in that it's better for the environment. I know that that's been a major focus in our household, and just making sure that we can do our part. So going EV is excellent for the environment, no matter where you live, or about 95% of where you live, given that study that Michael referenced earlier today. So thanks everyone for participating and including that information for us. Excellent. So without further ado, we're going to welcome Jay to give his history and background and all of the great tips and tricks that he might have in regards to driving electric.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Jay Donaway. I am president of the Seattle Electric Vehicle Association, and also get to indulge in EV builds and upgrades here at EV Works on Bainbridge Island. I've been interested in EVs since the second Arab oil embargo, when I argued their merits with my father, an oil driller. And I'm proud to say that that old oil driller is driving a Mitsubishi i-MiEV around. You can see him on the right there pulling a canoe out of Lake Kapowsin with a Mitsubishi i-MiEV, rated at 62 miles per day. And that's why I talk about the mission of your EV. If you're buying it for a commute, you can design around that. I would not recommend picking up a vehicle where your daily driving uses more than 80% of the battery capacity per charge. You want to leave that 20% buffer in there as a minimum to handle winter, when the battery will give up less and you will demand more of it due to heat and maybe snow tires, and also allow for some degradation. My Mitsubishi delivered what it promised, and the battery was replaced with 76% state of health at 106,000 miles. I don't believe there's a 2011 Nissan Leaf that can make that claim, but my background screen you may recognize as the dashboard of a 2011 Leaf displaying 258 miles of range. Yeah, that's true, because we put 62 kilowatt hour batteries from crashed late model Leafs into the early cars at very significant cost, but people do love their cars, and an early Leaf will actually go farther than a brand new Leaf because it's a lighter weight, lower powered version of the Leaf. And the owners that do opt for that really love it. In the center there is my drag racing Carmen Ghia, which has 360 kilowatts of power. That's a much better power to weight ratio than a performance Tesla. And it was built primarily out of salvaged military spec components. Military aircraft starting batteries run that down the drag strip. And on the left, the very first silver i-MiEV that I purchased fresh off the boat in December 2011 at the Electron Heights substation, pulling some good hydro down. And that car we used, it was rated for 62 miles of range, and our average usage was 48 miles a day. So we got maximum economic utilization out of that car, and only traded it in because there was a better deal to be had on a premium edition. When the federal tax credits were in place, they were a very significant factor. I used 2 of those $7,500 federal tax credits and was actually cash flow positive for 2 years on 2 brand new EV purchases, because I was doing a lot of business miles and claiming 52 cents a mile for miles that were only costing me 2.4 cents worth of energy. So that was a big factor.
Excellent. So one of the questions that we've seen in the chat is, in your experience, would you recommend buying a used EV over a new model?
Especially now that the tax credits are not a factor in many and Washington State finally allowed the sales tax exemption on used EVs, that's all I would consider right now. It's true that used Teslas depreciate more slowly than just about anything on the road, but that's because they deserve it. They have the best battery packs by far. For cars with batteries that depreciate more quickly, like used Leafs, there's a great niche for them as a second vehicle, a dedicated commuter, or an island car. I've helped a number of them find new homes in the San Juans, where you just can't go far, regardless of how hard you try. There are apps for every vehicle, such as Leaf Spy for the Nissan Leaf, where you can see exactly what's going on in the battery. The only real caveat is to do at least a 24-hour test drive, run that car through a full charge and discharge cycle. The very first documented instance of fraud in an EV purchase occurred from a dealership in Tacoma. Unknowingly to them, they bought a car from the auction whose battery had been disconnected and the computer reset. And when the computers are reset, they go to the factory default conditions, and a very well-used battery will act like it's brand new until it goes through a few charge discharge cycles and resets. So watch the displayed range on a new used EV purchase very closely for the first couple of weeks.
So speaking of charging, we actually had a question that came in through the Q&A box from Kwame. So they just recently purchased a Kia Niro EV, and they've been receiving some conflicting info about how to charge it properly in order to maintain the health of the battery. So do you charge it up to 100% or only charge it to 80 or 90%? What should you do to allow the battery to reduce before charging in order to maintain that health?
Unless you get deeply involved in the owner forums where a lot of pedigreed engineers dissect the cars and find out exactly what's going on, I would always charge to 80%. The optimal operating range for the battery is between 20 and 80% of the manufacturer's rated capacity. And in used Nissan Leafs, it is undeniable that sitting at 100% state of charge for extended periods is the worst thing you can do for the battery, far worse than driving it a lot, far worse than even DC fast charging in summer and heating up the battery.
Excellent, thank you. I hope that answers the question that was in there. We do actually have one last question that also came in that is very specific for you, Jay. It said, how hard is it to convert a classic car to an EV? Are there some local shops you can recommend?
It's very difficult to convert a modern car where you have to become a computer hacker in addition to being a mechanic. But a pre-computer classic is a relatively straightforward job. The easiest of which is an air-cooled Volkswagen, like my yellow Carmen Ghia there. The motor literally just bolts up to the transmission with an adapter plate. Most of the work is in designing and fitting the battery pack, which is very mission specific. And with the cost of labor these days, you're looking at $30,000 and up to do a classic EV conversion. We've got one in our shop right now that is over an $80,000 job. But he's going to have a car that performs like a P-Series Tesla that looks nothing like it. So there is a lot to be said for having a sleeper that can smoke modern cars from the red lights. But even my lowly iMev can be just about anything with an engine away from the red light. EVs are fun.
They are most definitely fun. Well, thank you so much, Jay. We really appreciate you giving your experience. We're going to be getting into a lot more questions right after this, but if you do have any more questions that you'd like to kind of take a peek at, you can find more information at ev.pse.com to browse models, incentives, charging stations, let you compare vehicles, and you can send any additional questions to electricvehicle@pse.com as well. We're going to be answering a lot of the extra questions in the next couple of days and sending that out to everyone and going through a little bit of a Q&A right after this. You can also learn more and sign up for our Up and Go Electric newsletter, where we'll talk about current stories, studies that have come out, and get some more information about upcoming events. You can sign up for that at pse.com/electric cars.
Yes, and just a note that if you registered for today's event, which you probably did if you're here, we do have record of your email address. So you don't have to take any further action to get that email. We'll be just sending that to you as soon as we get that YouTube link prepped for you. Great. Let's jump into the Q&A. So let's see. I know we have a lot of J-specific Q&A questions for everybody. Jay, what's the degradation of battery over time? Like, we have a question from Albert who says, like, with his laptop, the battery gets halved over 2 or 3 years. How does that work with EVs? Do they have the same problem?
A well-designed EV should deliver 100% of its original rated range up to 100,000 miles. That has not been the case with all of the first generation cars. I selected my Mitsubishi because I dug in deep and saw that they rated the car based on an 80% battery discharge. There were no fixed rules in place, so Nissan rated their cars based on a 100% battery discharge. And there was a class action lawsuit and settlement regarding that issue and some premature degradation. Teslas are going multiple hundreds of thousands of miles before they're down below 80% on the battery. Early Teslas did have other issues though. For instance, there was a electrical shorting issue, micro shorts within the ball bearings of the motors that caused a lot of owners to get full drivetrain replacements under warranty. That could be a scary issue out of warranty. I have one friend who had his drivetrain replaced 3 times inside 108,000 miles, but the ownership community and myself are satisfied that they have solved those issues. Likewise, Kia Niro EV owners just had a major recall that saw their batteries get replaced under warranty. Chevy Bolt owners from 2017 through 2019 are under a similar recall right now, and GM has not deemed them worthy of full battery replacement. They just on Tuesday said that they would replace modules within affected battery packs, which is not a typical dealer level service option, rebuilding a battery pack. So the jury's still out on that one, but do a lot of research before picking your used EV.
Melissa, I think this is a good question for you. The state of Washington is advocating hybrid and electric vehicles as better for the environment. But Wally's asking, they do add a surcharge on tab fees, and they maybe feel that that discourages hybrid and EV use. Can you answer that question for us?
You know, I know that with a lot of vehicles, tabs tend to be more of an issue because we have just a lot of capital projects that are going on in the state of Washington. And because EVs don't necessarily use gas, that's how we would normally get a lot of those projects paid for, is through gas tax. And so we've just basically moved it over from gas taxes to more of a tabs for EV owners. And so that's kind of where you see that balance. And so because we are Washington State residents, we just get to move over to paying for it in a different capacity.
I'll jump in on this. As president of Seattle EV Association, we have lobbied heavily regarding these tab fees because they are a backdoor tax and they are a very blunt instrument. The average Prius driver now pays far less in road tax than the average EV driver, which we believe is not the right signal to be sending. And we participated and promoted studies of a vehicle miles travel tax, which has advanced very far in Oregon, not yet in Washington State. And the absence of the vehicle miles travel tax actually caused Governor Inslee to veto the all-electric aspirational bill for 2030 recently, and we are working to try and get that modified for the next round of the legislature.
Great, thanks, Jay. Michael, question for you. Rohit asks if there's a central platform to search for charging stations. In their understanding, there are Tesla superchargers, Electrify America, any other alternatives, or Washington State specific?
Yeah, not Washington State specific, but my favorite is PlugShare, plugshare.com. It's very useful for finding charging stations near you. I always tell people if they're not EV drivers, they'll be surprised at just how many charging stations are available in their area often. So it'll show you level 2 chargers, DC fast chargers in your area, as well as reviews and photos. You can check what connecting ports are available before you arrive, what you'll need to pay. And our PSE chargers are on there as well, so you can find those.
And PlugShare's name comes from the dark ages when it was EV hobbyists actually sharing their home plugs. And that still makes up a lot of the entries on PlugShare. So learn how to use it, use the filters appropriately. But one of the most useful features of PlugShare is user check-ins. So you can see that sometimes literally within the last 12 hours, someone has verified that that station is online and working properly. Because nothing more disappointing than to arrive at a station sorely in need of a charge and find that it is kicked offline. But non-EV drivers will be surprised to look at a PlugShare map and see that there are far more charging stations now in Western Washington than there are gas stations. But people just don't notice them because they're a tiny little thing in the corner of a parking lot.
Cool. Well, Jay, that's a good question that we had come through asking about road trips. Like, can you take a road trip? Can you potentially drive to the East Coast in an EV? Is that feasible at all? Do you have any experience with that?
In a Tesla, it's a non-issue. I vicariously participated in several coast-to-coast road trip plans and have friends who have done that on purpose. I built my own hybrid and drove that iMEV to Leavenworth and back on 5 gallons of gasoline and a single 16 kilowatt hour charge. I've gone to Mount Hood and back in my 62-mile rated iMEV. But once the thrill wears off, you know, driving for 45 minutes and then charging for 20 minutes becomes a bit of a drudge. So I generally resort to a gasser if I'm going to have more than 2 fast charges in a journey. But the planning is easy with PlugShare. And after SEVA and others gave a lot of input on rate schedules, Electrify America, PSE, City Light have all modified their the fees that they charge for DC fast charging sessions, and they're all pretty equitable and compare favorably to the cost of gasoline on a road trip.
Yeah,
Great.
I just wanted to chime in real quick to piggyback off that. We've had guests on these past EV events that have taken their EVs to family trips to Yellowstone and had a great experience. One of our guests shared a cool photo where they drove their EV up pretty far north into Canada, past the sign that said last gas station, and they were still able to get to a yurt in the wilderness and charge at an outlet. So gas cars couldn't go much further, but the EV was just fine. And so, yeah, like Jay said, it'll take kind of a change of your way in thinking and more planning to do a long distance road trip in an EV. You'll have to figure out where you're able to charge, whether it's a hotel overnight or a public charging station. But it can be done. It all depends on how committed you are to it, I guess.
Yeah, you equip your EV with the right plug adapters and the right portable level 2 unit, and any RV park is a level 2 station for you. You make new friends. I've met a few farmers along the way. I've even unplugged a Coke machine in the middle of a national park in the dark of night, but never failed to get home or get on the flatbed of shame tow truck.
Great. Michael, I think this is a good one for you. We have a question. We know that there's been a lot of different impacts based on the pandemic last year and continuing into this year. And Ed is asking about the shortage of new EVs due to lack of chips. Have we seen that impact the available inventory this year? Do you have any details about that?
Yeah. Yes, there's been a shortage of new EV models due to that microchip shortage. There's also been a shortage of new gas-powered models. It's kind of affecting the car market overall, which has caused a hopefully temporary, kind of increase in price of used vehicles, both EVs and gas-powered. So it's definitely not an EV-specific problem. Anything that uses a microchip right now has been impacted. Beyond that, I don't really know. I'm not a microchip expert. I'm just hoping it resolves itself quicker than longer.
Yeah, anything to add on that one, Jay?
It's even affecting the availability of home EVSE, getting a charging station. Clipper Creek, the best brand, has been running an 8 to 12 week backlog at times. But with patience, and I only buy used from now on, it's easier.
Yeah, let's see. Jay, have you ever leased an EV? Julie's asking about the pros and cons of leasing versus purchasing.
Personally, I have never leased, but early Leaf adopters who leased wound up getting the best deal. It's still a good option. I drive too many miles per year for leases to be a good deal. And the manufacturer behavior has been very, very inconsistent. Nissan was the only one who would reliably roll the $7,500 federal tax credit into the lease capitalization, and that's how they were able to offer Leaf leases at $199, $249 a month. That $7,500 went to the bottom line. I had a Chrysler finance manager tell me that $7,500 was between me and the state of Washington, and pressure me to sign on the bottom line for a lease that did not incorporate that. So buyer beware in that regard. But if you're doing less than 24,000 miles a year and you like a new car every 5 years, a lease could be a very good option. I buy cars off lease directly from the owner. Was my last purchase a 2016 Kia Soul EV with under 24,000 miles for under $12,000, and I have since put over 30,000 miles on that car with zero maintenance. The tires are still the original tires at 64,000 miles.
You've got all those stats in your head. That's awesome, Jay. We have a couple of questions about leaving your car for some time. So Vicky is asking if they fully charge the battery or like 80%, but then don't drive for several days. How much does the charge go down? And then I also had a question from Bill asking about the storing an EV. So if you store for like 1 to 3 months, a Tesla, what kind of impact do you see?
Teslas have the most significant standby loads, and they tended to have the shortest life of their 12-volt lead acid starting batteries. Because even though you're not cranking an engine, you got to turn on the contactors and keep the computers running. So if you're going to leave the car for a short period, I'd say charge it up to 80% or less and walk away fine. Ideal long-term storage, such as my snowbird parents, who will leave the car for months at a time, is run it down to 40% and then disconnect the 12-volt battery. You could put a trickle charger on the 12-volt battery, but that's to just let the car go to sleep completely, and it will wake up from its time warp like nothing happened. Lithium batteries self-discharge less than 1% per year if it's a healthy battery. So that's not much of an issue, but there are significant standby loads from the computers when it's just sitting there. Teslas can lose 4 to 5% a day just sitting there communicating with the mothership, receiving all those cool free over-the-air updates.
Great. We have some questions about battery safety. And so Jay, I'm wondering, Rod asked, does the battery cause any extra hazards in case of a collision? And when you think about it compared to a gas-powered vehicle, how does the safety measure up?
Compared to 800 pounds of steaming hot iron landing in your lap, I'd say the batteries on average are far safer, though Tesla has gotten a lot of flack for their battery fires. The Tesla battery is so energy dense that its chemistry is literally similar to solid rocket fuel, just without a fuse attached. They contain their own oxygen. So once they start burning, the only way to stop the fire is to physically cool them down enough. But you usually get plenty of warning if the pack has been penetrated in a collision. It says, high voltage fault, please exit the vehicle immediately. Otherwise, the batteries are low. They are in between the wheels. They are out of the collision area. In my business, evworks.com, we salvage Nissan Leaf collision batteries and put them back in the cars. And it is extremely rare that the battery has been damaged physically in the collision. And we've never had a computer fault or high voltage isolation issue related to one of these collision salvage batteries. Plus, I've been charging my EVs outside in the rain in this weather for the past 10 years and never an issue with a factory built EV.
Jay, do you have any insight into the Bolt fires? We have several questions about that, and I don't know if you have any insight to offer. I will say that none of us are experts at that, so just kind of anecdotal info on.
Yeah, initial suspect was that it was related to the battery management system. All the fires have originated inside the battery, but current scuttlebutt is that it was the physical separator layer within the battery cells that is defective and allows micro shorts on occasion. It only needs to happen in 1 or 2 cells inside a battery pack that contains hundreds of cells. And GM's initial fix was to limit the state of charge to 90%. That has not been successful. And we're talking about a global count of, I believe we're up to 12 vehicle fires now. So the odds are very, very low. But I would agree with GM's recommendation to park the car outside and not, in my case, underneath my bedroom in the garage for overnight charging. And I'm hoping that they come around to full battery replacement. There are no known issues in the 2019 and newer Bolts that were not built in a certain factory in South Korea, but the batteries are now being assembled in Michigan under a different design.
Okay. So yeah, Rosalind had a question. She has a 2022 version. So it sounds like that probably won't be affected, but probably still recommending to charge it outside.
And no known issues with Bolts newer than 2019.
Oh, good. Okay. Great. One question for Michael. Are there any special, what is the attachment that you need to charge at PSE's charging stations? Is it the CHAdeMO or?
We have 2 different connectors. It's going to cover any EV you have, with the exception of Tesla. If you have a Tesla, you'll need to bring the Tesla-specific adapter you can purchase. Otherwise, any EV on the market can charge at the PSE stations.
Great.
There is
and if you want, I'll put a link in the chat if you want more information on that, including pricing and locations and things like that. So coming up in the chat in a second.
Thanks.
Yeah, there is a related issue about the availability of DC fast charging on different standards, because we have the Nissans, Kias, and Mitsubishis on the earlier Japanese standard, and now the American makers, the new Kias, the Hyundais, and the German makers are using the CCS, or combined charging standard. Those are physically and software incompatible. And Electrify America has tilted the scales in favor of their brand, Volkswagen, by deploying one CHAdeMO station to 8 or more CCS stations. So Leaf owners are feeling the pinch with all the newer DC fast charging infrastructure, but PSE, City Light, others are making sure to continue to include CHAdeMO in their new installations.
Great. So we just have 1 minute left. That time really flew by. So thank you everybody for joining us. Melissa, I'm gonna remind the folks about the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be notifying those winners today by email. So be checking your inbox to win this pretty sweet prize of a nice goldfish collector vacuum, as well as some towels and some extra things to be able to take care of your vehicle. So we just want to thank you guys so much for attending today. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some great information, and there'll be some information that'll be coming to your inbox as well regarding some of the questions that we didn't get to. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Jay, for attending with us.
Thank you. It's always fun and my favorite subject.
Yes, very valuable to have you. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And we'll follow up with the link to the presentation, and then also get to answer a lot of those questions we didn't get to. So thanks again, everyone.